just a quick overview of what we're going to do here. There are three speakers, Rachel and me and my mother, Hersh's grandmother. Each of us will speak for about 5 minutes, and we'll then have you all back to your regular lives. I think most of you are in the middle of work days. So that is the one of show. I want to say regarding this learning, a week ago, Rachel and I and our trusted advisory team decided we just need to dedicate a week to doing goodness. We've spent 280 days at that time running around the world, talking to everybody, talking to influencers, talking to leaders. We just need to go back to basics and focus on elevating and accelerating good in the world through song, through learning, through volunteer activities, through the dedication of a new Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll that we're going to be dedicating on Thursday. When we announced that we wanted to learn all of Tanach, all of the Jewish Bible, we put up a sign-up sheet, and I believe we ended up with over 1,000 people, 1,300, thank you, 1,300 people officially registered. I know the number is actually a lot more than that. We're seeing messages and pictures and videos from Jewish camps all over North America that have been learning today and yesterday. And so 1,300 is the number officially signed up, but I think it's thousands of people who have taken part. And together we have all learned all 929 chapters of Tanakh several times over. So thank you for all of that. I chose to study the book of the Nehemiah portion of the book of Ezra Nehemiah. I chose it out of curiosity because I had never studied it in any depth. It's one of the more obscure books of Tanakh. I could not wait to get started, even though we officially learned from 8 p.m. in Jerusalem Sunday night to 8 p.m. in Jerusalem Monday night. I wanted to get an early start, so I read the book of Nehemiah on Shabbat afternoon here in Jerusalem by myself. But then today, Rachel and I sat down with our good friends Richard Dem and Rabbi Rob Kahn, and we spent over an hour going into more depth. And I wanted to speak about the portion of Nehemiah from Ezra Nehemiah, and specifically a few of the pieces of it that resonated for me. I'll start by just giving context, which is the year is roughly 445 or 444 BCE. It's 140 years, give or take, after the destruction of the first temple. And Nehemiah, who we believe wrote much of the book of Ezra Nehemiah, is seated in his high government position in Shushan, same place as the Purim story in Persia or modern-day Iran. Nehemiah, as a Jew, is a high government official, but he catches wind of the destruction and the burning that is going on in Jerusalem, and he can't take it. He's distraught, and he's got to do something about it. And he goes to the king. The king sees the level of distress that Nehemiah is under, basically gives him a leave of absence, and Nehemiah goes to Jerusalem with a very focused mission. He goes to rebuild the destroyed walls of Jerusalem. And Nehemiah shows up with that clear mission, and a few of the themes from this relatively short book that jumped out at me are the following. Number one, it's about Jerusalem. It starts in Shushan, but much of it takes place in Jerusalem. And as many of you know, those of you who have been following our story and know Hersh and know Hersh's story, Jerusalem is such a central part of Hersh's identity. He moved to the city when he was 7.5 years old. He loves this city. He loves the culture, the arts, the blend of cultures and religions. He, like everybody in his elementary school, had to learn the old city of Jerusalem inside and out as a 6th grader his last year in the school and give tours of the old city. And he's never lost that connection that he feels to the city of Jerusalem. A few months ago, we were approached by a jewelry designer named Danit who wanted to create a jewelry piece for Hersh. And it was clear to us in discussing it with Danit, Levi led this for our family, that Jerusalem was going to be the centerpiece of this necklace that Danit designed. It is the numbers 02, the Jerusalem area code, in the center of the necklace. And so Jerusalem certainly jumped out at me. The second thing that jumped out at me is the element of faith. Nehemiah, while living outside of Jerusalem, outside of in Persia, has tremendous faith in God. In fact, in the first chapter, we see that Nehemiah, it says, Ana Hashem tihina aznecha kashevet. He goes to pray to God, but in doing so, he says, God, have an attentive ear. It's like he's waking up God and pleading, listen to my prayers. And something that Rachel and I have discussed a lot when we discussed theology in the last 283 days is not just faith, but that concept of calling out to God and basically making it a two-way street and saying, God, help us so that we can have more of this relationship. We've talked a lot about the Amidah, the silent meditation that we say 3 times a day, starting with the verse, Ad Hashem sifatai tiftach ufi yagiti latecha. God, open my lips so that prayer to you can come out. That's what I thought of when I thought of this faith that Nehemiah has in praying to God and begging God to make it a two-way relationship and strengthening his own ability to get the answers that Nehemiah wants from God. It's been a central role of our past 283 days. The third component that jumped out at me, chapter 3 of Nehemiah, is pretty boring. It's a list of people who are helping. But what's constructive in it is the imagery, as I was reading chapter 3, was like a wave at a football game of like moving from section to section to section, because basically what it says is Group A built this section of the wall, and Group B built this section, Group C built this section, and 27 times in one chapter it uses some variation of the words next to them or right after them, and it was like this teamwork, people encircling Jerusalem, each working together to build these walls. And we've said a lot that in the last 283 days, the team of people around us, and that includes everybody on this call, has grown and grown and grown. And it keeps growing and it keeps strengthening us. And we keep saying, we are not in this fight alone. We are in it with part of a global support team. And like I said, that includes all of you. And that concept really came out at me in chapter 3 of Nehemiah. And the last piece that I'm going to talk about is perseverance. It clearly says, as they're building the walls, Nehemiah's rallied the troops, they're working together, they're under siege at the same time. And it literally talks about how some of the people have a weapon, some people are using building tools, some have both. And there's this perseverance of even when we are under distress, under siege, we are not going to stray from our goal. And it deliberately and clearly says in Nehemiah that this group succeeds in rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, and they do it in 52 days. And for people who spend all day looking out our window at cranes and building, and it's been over a year of a building being built, I think in 444 BCE, for a team to build the entire walls of Jerusalem in 52 days is just such an amazing kind of personification of perseverance. And when I think about these concepts of Jerusalem and faith and teamwork and perseverance, just as all of those elements came together and successfully took on a mission with a very clear goal and completed the mission of building the walls in Jerusalem, I feel like we are increasing our focus, increasing our teamwork. We are just continuously manifesting perseverance. And we, with all of your help, the royal we, are going to use all of those elements, and we are going to succeed in this mission. And it should be soon that we bring home Hersh and all of the hostages, hopefully healthy in body, healthy in soul. We will get them all the help that they need, but the ingredients are in place for us to succeed. And I thank all of you for all of that. I'm going to turn it over to my mother, Leah Polin, who's also going to speak for a few minutes, and then we'll turn it over to Rachel.
Okay, so I tried to learn again Noach, Parshat Noach, because that was Hersh's Parsha, but it was difficult for me. The same issues in Noach that were there years ago were still here. So I'm going to start from the other way, talking about Hersh, and then leading into what I learned and who I learned from. So my grandson Hersh, from the time he was little, was always comfortable being with older people. and getting involved in challenging discussions. On my many trips to Jerusalem, I always look forward to our private time together and engaging in some very interesting and provocative issues. A year ago, May, we discussed his very well thought out plans for his upcoming summer. He told me he was off to Germany alone for 6 weeks visiting friends. I asked where he was going and who he was going to stay with for such a long time. And he said close friends, German young men who he knew in each of the cities, and he would be visiting and staying with their families. Hersh, I said, are you, a religious young Jewish man from Jerusalem, comfortable staying in the houses of German families, perhaps families with former Nazis as grandparents? Looking me straight in the eye, he said, Savta, you are an old generation. I am the new generation. If my generation doesn't trust and forgive and befriend young Germans, how will there ever be normal relationships with Germany? I was speechless. How did Hersh develop this attitude, and where did it come from? And just a few months after this conversation, and his return from a fantastic 6-week experience in Germany, he was at the Nova Festival of Love and Peace. Why? Could it be that Hersh chose to see the good in mankind? Could it be that he had the urge and desire to change the world for good? Could it be that he chose to see the good in people and not the evil that exists in this world? Hersh's bar mitzvah parsha was Noah. So I tried it again, and in reading over Noah, I understood that Noah too tried to save the world by building the ark and sending in the animals 2 by 2 so that they would be able to reproduce themselves. He had the best of intentions. But near the end of the parsha, Noah drank of his own vineyard, became drunk, and lay naked. And though living another 350 years, which may have intrigued Hersh, he would not be a good person that Hersh would want to emulate. However, Parshat Noah ends with a long genealogy, introducing us to Terach the father, and ultimately to Abraham, his son, and their journey to Haran. Abraham would be in the vanguard of perfecting the world and bringing the people to being God's chosen people. Abraham liked to see the good potential in people, and so did Hersh. Vayomer Hashem el Abraham, Lech lecha ma'eretzecha u'mi'moladatecha u'mibeit avicha el ha'aretz asher arecha v'yaseh l'goy gadol v'yavarechecha v'yagadecha shemeach v'yeh baracha. So this is how we read the beginning of Lech lecha. Following God's commandments, Abraham's life became exemplary. According to Lord Jonathan Sacks, Abraham became the most influential person in the world who ever lived. Today, he is claimed as the spiritual leader of 2.3 billion Christians, 1.8 billion Muslims, and 15 million, that's all Jews, more than half the planet's people alive today. Yet, Abraham ruled no empire. He commanded no great army. He performed no miracles. He proclaimed no prophecy. He is the supreme example in all of history of influence without power. On choosing to embark on a summer trip to Germany, my grandson Hersh, while seeking adventure, of course, was also seeking to do his small part in perfecting the world, of sharing love between former enemies. How strange and enigmatic, but that a few months later, he would be captured, along with others who are the Christians and the Muslims, those descendants of Abraham Avinu, while enjoying music of peace and unity at the Nova Music Festival, only to endure and witness torture, terrorism, and anarchy. May God deliver them from their bondage and return them soon to let peace and love prevail once again.
Thank you, Mom. That was great. So just to sort of tidy up here, I think back to many years ago when our family would go for Passover to Ramat Garom in the mountains of Georgia, our most beautiful, wonderful family trips with our extended family. And one of the teachers who I had the privilege of learning with there was Rabbi Harold Kushner, who was well known for writing the book When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And he had a lot of philosophical conversations with us in class about that topic. And he had suffered terribly. He had suffered a terrible loss, Rabbi Kushner. And what was interesting is that in that class, each of us, it almost became a therapy session. We met every day during Chol HaMoed, during the interim days of Passover. And I remember that one woman raised her hand and she asked him, "You suffered such a terrible loss." Rabbi Kushner lost his son to a terrible disease. He watched his son suffer terribly for 13 years and then his son passed away. And she said, how can you, if you use the Tanach, how could you sum up in just a verse or less from the Tanakh your life view? And he said, "Oh, that's so easy. Kosi revaya, my cup overflows." And we were all shocked. And he said, it's all how you look at everything that you experience. And John and I are going through, obviously, a very traumatic experience. And one of the things that we do often is say Tehillim, say different psalms. People have heard me talk about this. And I often say with a lot of regularity Psalm Kaf Gimel, Psalm 23, which is the psalm that has the words that Rabbi Kushner said in it. And I think about how one of the other verses in that psalm says, "Even though I am walking in this dark chapter, in this valley of darkness, the gates al mavet, even though I am walking in this dark valley, Hosi Revaya, my cup overflows." And John and I talk about this strange combination of having such excruciating, indescribable torment, and yet experiencing the most beautiful love and support and outpouring of care from all of you and from literally, at this point, millions of people around the world. And I hope and pray that we don't lose that ability of still feeling that our cup overflows, even while we're walking through this valley of immense darkness. And my aspiration for us and for Hersh and for all of us and for all of the hostages and the hostage families and for the whole entire people, the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, and all people in the world, is that the last line of that psalm, which says, "Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai," that only goodness and kindness should chase me all my life, and that I will live in the house of God for the length of my days. And so my blessing to Hersh, who I hope somehow can feel and hear, you are going to live a long and precious life. And we are here. We will never stop fighting to get you home. We will get you home because you have a long life to live. And we have a long life to live to watch you live. And I just want to thank everybody for being part of this week of goodness. We have such a surplus of pain and suffering and ugliness in the world that what we really needed was to flood the world this week, especially with more light and with more goodness. And we thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We will be continuing the Week of Goodness with numerous volunteer opportunities in Jerusalem and in Israel, and people are welcome to add their own. And on Thursday, we will be dedicating a new Torah scroll everybody in Israel is welcome to join us. There, I think, will be a live stream for those outside of Israel. And keep doing what you're doing, and we're appreciative, and we will keep on going, all of us together. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Love you all. Thank you.